Yeah.
Councillor Walton?
Yeah.
Councillor Brown?
Yes.
Councillor Kelly?
Yeah.
Cllr Roy Gladden? Can you see and hear everything, Roy?
Yeah, it's okay. You broke up then. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Marrat?
Yes. Thank you.
Cllr Roz Gladden? Roz? Jump in.
Oh my God.
Okay, thank you. And just to let everyone know, Councillor Joanne Calvert's apologies have been submitted. So I'll hand over to you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Jane. Good morning, everybody. Going straight to the agenda. Any declarations of interest? No. No. Have you read the minutes of the last meeting?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you need me to go through any of them? Is that agreed?
No, that's agreed.
Okay. Right.
No, yes.
Item 3, draft cumulative impact policy assessment consideration of the consultation response. Over to you, Andy.
Thank you, Chair. Can everyone hear me okay, yeah?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Chair, the report is to advise the committee of the responses received during the statutory consultation process conducted in respect of the draft cumulative impact assessment for certain streets in the wards of County and Kensington, Fairfield and Central. The recommendation, Chair, is that the committee consider the consultation responses and the city manager's comments, and that the committee decide whether or not to approve, amend or reject the draft cumulative impact assessment at Appendix 2 to this report. If the draft cumulative impact assessment is approved, the city manager be instructed to publish it on the City Council's website. Background, Chair, is that the committee will recall that at its virtual meeting on the 1st of July 2020, approval was given to undertake a consultation process to transition the existing special cumulative impact policies into cumulative impact assessments in respect of the following streets: Bowler Street, Holt Road, Kensington, Molyneux Road, and part of Prescott Road from its junction with Kensington to the railway line forming the eastern boundary of Kensington and Fairfield Ward, and also for County Road from its junction with Barlow Lane, Spellow Lane to Rice Lane flyover, and the whole of City Road. Just for everyone's recollection, Chair, committee agreed that these were the only two CIPs that we would go out to consultation on. So Allerton Road, Lark Lane, Rope Walks and Cavern Quarter obviously will lapse because they will not be transitioned into CIA. So obviously what you're looking to do today is to make a decision on whether these will be transitioned into CIAs as well. The consultation was conducted with the prescribed statutory consultees during the 10th of August 2020 to the 21st of September 2020, together with copies of the consultation document being delivered to all businesses and residents on the affected streets. Notice of the consultation was also published on the council's website. Copies of all those notices, Chair, are in the report, which include the draft questionnaire, the draft cumulative impact assessment, and the letter that we sent round explaining the process. Responses were received, Chair, from the Alcohol and Tobacco Unit, the Director of Public Health. There was responses from elected representatives, so they include Councillors Liam Robinson, Councillor Sue Walker, Councillor Wendy Simon and Paul Barker MP, and also a response from Cllr Roy Gladden. And responses were received from licensing agents, and I apologise with my papers over the job. There was premises on Molyneux Road that responded, and obviously once I've gone through the main bits, we can go through those responses and discuss what was returned. Amend or reject the draft CIA. The committee will recall the advice contained in the previous reports that if the current CIPs are not transitioned into CIAs and summarised within the new licensing policy statement, they will no longer carry any lawful weight and should be disregarded when considering any applications in CIP areas after January 2021. This would mean that there would no longer be a presumption against granting new license applications or variations in the current CIP areas when relevant representations have been received. Nonetheless, the absence of a CIA will not prevent any responsible authority or other person making representations on an application for the grant or variation of a licence on the grounds that the premises will give rise to a negative cumulative impact on one or more of the licensing objectives. However, in each case, it will be incumbent on the person making the representation to provide relevant evidence of cumulative impact. I don't know I don't know how you want me to go through the rest, Chair. Do you want to go through the responses that we've received, and then obviously I can go on to the city manager's comments on the options available, or has anybody got any questions at this time?
Has anybody got any questions for Andy at this moment? Okay, carry on, Andy. And if you put your hand up, and then I can bring you in, or raise your hand or press the button. Is that okay with you, Andy?
No, it's fine with me, Chair, yeah.
Go on, Andy, carry on.
The City Manager's comments, Chair, are the responses to the statutory consultation process have been limited, and the committee members will need to carefully consider whether there is sufficient evidence currently to justify the publication of a cumulative impact assessment, saying that the numbers of premises selling alcohol for consumption off the premises only in these areas are sufficient, and if we do, there'll be problems of public nuisance and crime and disorder. What I will say, Chair, is to assist the committee in weighing up the relevant considerations, the City Manager believes it's fair to make the following points. The original cumulative impact policy for the streets in question in Kensington and County wards were introduced in 2014 and 2017 respectively, when there was undoubtedly significant evidence of antisocial behaviour and nuisance due to the numerous takeaways and off licences located in these streets. However, since the introduction of the CIPs, the police, alcohol and tobacco unit and licensing authority, responsible authority, have been rigorous in scrutinising the contents of all new applications and variation applications in these streets. The results of this is that the quality of applications has improved markedly, and those applications involving the off-sales of alcohol which have been approved in these streets have all had comprehensive conditions prohibiting the sale of high-strength alcohol and single cans, and addressing proxy sales and identifying alcohol-dependent customers. In addition, the Council's alcohol and tobacco unit have been extremely proactive in recent years in giving advice and carrying out test purchases to ensure that off-licences are fully aware and compliant with the conditions of their licences. As a result, the City Manager believes that the problems of alcohol-related nuisance and antisocial behaviour in these areas has improved, and the committee members should carefully consider whether special cumulative impact measures are still required. This is not to say that the problems previously identified have been eradicated, as evidenced in a recent unsuccessful appeal hearing in Liverpool Magistrates Court concerning an application for a premises in Kensington, which the subcommittee had refused pursuant to the CIP in January 2020. However, if the committee decided not to publish the draft cumulative impact assessment, the City Manager is satisfied that the continuing scrutiny of applications for these streets by the relevant responsible authorities to ensure they contain robust operating schedules would be sufficient to promote the licensing objectives without the additional presumption of a refusal afforded by such policies. If the presumption of refusal were not renewed by the publication of cumulative impact assessment, and in fact the City Manager's above assessment proves incorrect, with the previously identified issues once again becoming a pressing concern, it would be entirely appropriate to revisit whether the evidence then supports the reimposition of the presumption of refusal by way of cumulative impact assessment. Finally, Chair, the City Manager would remind the committee that whilst public health are a responsible authority and were therefore consulted as part of the statutory consultation, the promotion of public health is not a licensing objective under the Licence Act 2003, and the committee are therefore limited to considering matters relevant to the promotion of the 4 licensing objectives. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, has anybody got any questions for Andy?
Roy. Thank you, Chair. If I may quickly, very quickly summarise what Andy said. From what you just said, it seems to be as if they don't believe that they are as necessary as they were a number of years ago. Am I right in that, first of all, Andy?
Yeah, on the basis, Councillor, on the applications that we are being provided with in the areas that currently have CIPs and throughout the whole of the city, the level of applications that we get are extremely good. The operating schedules that applicants and their agents are putting forward before us cover a whole host of conditions that licenses probably didn't have back in 2014.
Well, if I may say then, a couple of things here. First of all, we've just gone on, are still in, to a pandemic. You said the number of people that actually got back was very low as part of the consultation. That is factual, because to be blunt about it, people have got more things on their mind, because most of the shops on County Road are being locked down, including the pubs, exactly for over close on 12 months now. So I can say quite literally that the things they had on their mind, this was probably about number 74 on their priority areas, responding to this. Secondly, we've been talking to a number of organisations who wish to open new off licences, telling them who were trying to go to planning first, that we had a CIP in the area. Some of them were takeaways and believed that takeaways actually weren't part of the CIP, and so they were sort of reminded of it. If anything, I can't talk about Kensington, but for county, we've still got too many, even today, takeaways and places that sell alcohol, rather than a situation. And literally, if we just let things go back to what we would know as normality, our problems would still be there. I'm just concerned when, you know, if we're looking at something today, it is not looking at as what I would call normality. And I'm really concerned that, you know, when we got this kind of report coming back saying everything's looking honky-dory. We had the CIP because of the huge problems we had on County Road with alcoholism, and it's still not gone away. I tell you what, open it up again to the number of places you can buy alcohol from, and I think literally we're going to go back to square one. From my point of view, and I know my colleagues as well, the CIP has been a very important part, or the CIA, hopefully, if it is, issue of combating, trying to get an area back to some kind of normality, and hopefully to get a situation again where the area itself is not dragged down to the level it was at a couple of years ago. And the CIP has been a very, very important process towards this year. So they're my first comments on the first report that Andy, I know it wasn't Andy's, but the first part of the report that he's come forward.
The thing
That's on behalf of the county. I don't know about my colleagues from Kensington.
This consultation went out before the pandemic, though, didn't it, Andy?
It went. The second part didn't share. The first part. The first part, looking to see whether what we did is we put a report before committee. I think either late last year or the early part of this year.
Yeah.
And then I went out and contacted councillors, the police, for initial feedback of whether this is something that we wanted to look at. And then obviously we did the full consultation, which this report refers to, Chair, during the pandemic.
Because we knew about this back in January or February.
That's when we sent the initial sort of email round and getting a little bit of feedback, so we could put it in the report for you to decide whether you wanted us to go out to consultation and felt there was enough evidence. Committee did feel there was enough evidence from the original information that I put forward to say you wanted us to go out to consultation on these two areas.
Yeah. Okay. Any more, Billy, and then I'll bring in Malcolm. Billy Marriott, go on.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Andy, it's a bit like planning, I think. Tell me if I'm wrong, but an application comes in you review it and everything, and then it could be rejected, so they can then go to court maybe and appeal.
Yeah, basically, when the application comes into ourselves and the other responsible authorities, we've got 28 days. So obviously, we contact councils. They put a blue notice up on the window of the premises. They advertise in the Liverpool Echo. If no representations are received after those 28 days, the application is automatically approved. If a valid representation based on the 4 licensing objectives is received, then we put it before licensing subcommittee for councillors to make a decision. If you approve it, it's approved. If you refuse it, then obviously the applicant's got a right to appeal to the magistrate's court.
Thanks, Andy. My next little add-on is, how strong in the appeal does the CIP make?
Well, I think
you know what I mean?
I think
Other than just being normal,
I
you
think
know, a
if we look
normal application. What sort of weight does the CIP carry for the likes of County and Kensington?
Well, I think if we look at the recent case that I mentioned within the report, where licensing subcommittee rejected an application in Kensington, the applicants appealed, and if Robin wants to just mention and back up what I've just said, we went to court, and we obviously, myself, the Merseyside Police, the ward councillors from that area made representations, and the judge sided with ourselves and felt there was significant evidence to reject that application in that area. And that came out on we were in court in November, and that judgment came out, I think it was the 2nd of December.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Chair.
Malcolm.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, obviously, Andy's just talked about some evidence and information that the police have provided in terms of subcommittees that we sit on in relation to applications in these areas. But clearly what's missing from this particular report is that information from Merseyside Police to back up and support the need for CIAs in both of these areas, which I think is quite disappointing, because, you know, back in, I think, was it 2014 when they were first considered and introduced, there was a hell of a lot more information provided by the police. And I think all through the Licensing Act and the guidance, it steers licensing authorities to the local police as being the key organisation to, if you like, listen to and consider the points they make because of the work that they do in the areas. And here we are considering a report with very little information from the police to back anything up in terms of the need for the CIAs in this area. And I think that potentially could present problems for the licensing authority in consideration of CIAs in other areas. So, for instance, I think I've spoken briefly to you in the past where I've had councillors from other areas come to me and say that they wanted to continue with the CIA in their areas, and I've made it quite clear to them that they would have to go to the police to get the information, to get the facts and the figures about those areas in order to support the continuation of a CIP into a CIA in those areas. So I put a lot of emphasis on the need for police information, and here we are considering a report with lack of police information for both of these areas. And as I say, that could open the floodgates, if you like, for other areas and councillors from other areas to say, look, we've got problems in our areas. We haven't got the information or the backing from the police in that regard, but you didn't have it with regard to County Road and Kensington, and you considered it was okay to put the CIA in place for both of those areas. So I think that's a concern for me, and I think the city manager, in some of the stuff he's put in the report, is potentially saying the same. As a committee, we need to consider whether there is the problems in the area now. I think there was a licensing agent has also made a comment, and I think some of the stuff that they've put is quite relevant, because we could potentially be in a situation where some of the premises that were causing problems in these areas are still there. So they've been operating prior to this CIP being introduced. Once the CIP was introduced, they've continued to operate. They've continued to present problems, whereas new applicants who may potentially be able to operate in a far better way have been refused, but the problem potentially still exists. And I don't know if Andy can comment on whether there have been any there's been any enforcement activity in both of these areas in order to weed out some of the problem premises and potentially bring them for review, because I think that that's a way to deal with it. If you've got premises in an area that's causing problems, well, maybe we need to look at bringing them for review, getting them closed down if they are presenting problems, and then that would hopefully in some way turn that area around and allow us to consider fresh applications in a different way in the future. They're just the 2 points that I want to make, really.
Yeah, do you want me to come back?
Respond, Andy, please. Thank you.
Regular enforcement is done, Chair, in all areas of the city, but in and around Kensington and county wards, and predominantly by our alcohol and tobacco unit. I'm not aware of any reviews been submitted recently in those areas. So whether the issues exist with problem operators or not, it's not something that our alcohol and tobacco units or our enforcement officers have found. We engage with premises all the time. Any information received regarding single cans or anything being served to street drinkers is acted upon as it is throughout the whole of the city. But I'm not aware of anything within recent months, recent 12 months, maybe longer, in and around these two areas. Chair. But we do enforcement all the time.
Okay, has anybody else got any questions for Andy or Robin? Okay, so we need to make a decision now. So do we cut out the live stream, Jane?
Robin?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, well, obviously you'll want to deliberate in private and probably take some legal advice from yourself as well in private. So to do that, I think you'll have to cut out the live stream and come back in a few minutes once you've made your decision